Hey everyone, today I wanted to make a quick update video on my PvP HotA Barbarian. Let's start with my gear. For my helm, I do have Generate 45 while at max Fury imprinted on it, and you want max cooldown reduction roll, armor, and Fury, and ideally max roll on life too. It's missing some, but that's alright. And for my chest gear, I do have Iron Skin granting Unstoppable and granting 25% damage reduction rolled on it. And this is really important in PvP because Iron Skin basically grants you Unstoppable for 5 seconds, and Rallying Cry grants you Unstoppable for 3.7 seconds. And no, actually, it grants you Unstoppable for 7.4 seconds. You can virtually become unstoppable at all times if you space out the cooldowns between those two skills. So this is really essential, and of course you want all the damage reduction rolls on it. 20% damage reduction from close enemies, and armor rolled on it, and damage reduction from bleeding. Of course, you can roll something like a damage reduction while fortified on it as well, but it is kind of hard to stay fortified at all times after some nerfs to the generating fortify imprints. So yeah, keep that in mind. But yeah, this is a pretty decent roll. For my gloves, I did switch back to dealing more damage to stunned enemies imprint. I did have a dealing more damage while I have a barrier proc on here before, but now I did swap out temerity for my damage reduction pants. Yeah, I did decide to roll back with this imprint, and of course you want max roll on attack speed, lucky hit chance, and critical hit chance as well, and 4 skill on Hammer of the Ancients. Next is my pants. I did swap out this with temerity. I mean, I did make a video on how temerity does help with like matchup versus poison rogues and stuff like that. But after some experiences of myself and hearing from other like high level Korean PvP players, I did come to conclusion that damage reduction pants is a lot better, of course, because temerity barrier, if that barrier proc, that 60% barrier proc, if that scaled with your total health, it would have been worth. But yeah, it doesn't scale with their total health. It just scales with your I guess like default HP or something. So I mean, this pants basically grants me like 5k health if I do swap it out. So yeah, that 5k barrier doesn't really help. I mean, it does block poison rogues poison damages from what I know, but other than that, yeah, the barrier proc does get deleted really quickly from high level geared players because it's only about like 5 to 6k barrier. And yeah, instead of having that, having this 62 strength, 23% damage reduction from close enemies, 8.7 armor. That was one of the biggest part, right? The armor part. I will explain why, and the damage reduction from distant enemies. Now, if I do switch to damage reduction pants, yeah, I'm gonna go with the basic skills granting 20% reduction for 6 seconds. Yeah, that is actually huge because you'll be chasing your opponents with your lunging strike most of the time. So you can proc this constantly. That 20% damage reduction, I think it's a lot better than armor stacking imprint, since you cannot proc the full potential of the armor imprint on 1v1 duels per se. That's a lot better for higher tier 9 level dungeons, but for PvP specifically, since you can proc this constantly, that full 20% damage reduction benefit, yeah, this is essential. So I did decide to switch out of temerity and come back to my good old damage reduction pants, and yeah, I do feel a lot tankier. Now, I do have yeah, for boots, yeah, that evade granting 75% movement speed. That is essential. I would not swap out that with any other options, since that grants you a lot of burst movement speed in PvP, and you need that to be able to kite TB rogues and other classes and stuff like that. So that's really essential. And of course, you want max roll on Fury cost reduction, berserking duration, and max roll on strength, and max roll on movement speed. And yeah, while unstoppable, it grants you 25% movement speed, which means yeah, whenever you're using Rallying Cry and Iron Skin, you can basically proc this constantly. So you basically have like constantly have 25% increased movement speed in PvP duels. So that's why you want this imprint. My weapon, since So you gotta keep in mind that in PvP, 9200 is armor cap and 200% is the crit damage cap. So uh, for your weapons, you basically want vulnerable damage, core skill damage, and damage to close enemies and strength. Like these are like four uh, essential stats that you want to stack. So yeah, and of course you want to look at the weapon DPS first of all and pick the highest one. So this one's a pretty decent roll. So I'm gonna move on to my side weapons. I did decide to swap both of my side weapons to axes because axes grant damage to healthy enemies, like extra damage to healthy enemies, and since you don't scale too much after 200% critical strike damage, you always wanna stack other attributes like damage to close enemies, damage to core, and damage to vulnerable, and strength like that, stuff like that. So yeah, I did swap out all of my side weapons with my swords because swords grant extra critical strike damage, and that doesn't really help because it's capped at 200%. Next, my sword, I could use a good rolled axe on this, but I couldn't find a good stat PvP purpose like axe for this because that does grant you a more damage to healthy enemies. But you know, I this is a pretty decent roll for what it is, right? So um, I didn't swap this with anything else. For my rings, you want max life, crit chance, vulnerable damage, and either core or close. I mean, these two rings could swap with swap with the rings that have core and close instead of the critical strike damage. But you know, I still feel like these are pretty decent roll. This one has a max roll on crit chance, so yeah, you do want to stack life as well because your armor is stacked at 9200. Only way to get more tankier is stacking damage reduction and armor. That's why this is really important. Damage reduction from close, damage reduction from vulnerable, damage reduction from distance, and damage reduction from bleeding, and the class damage reduction itself of the Barbarian. So that's how you get tankier in PvP by stacking life. So life does become really important. I will explain with the Paragon board later. But imprints, yeah, the regular stuff, the shouts generating fury, and the bold chieftains, 1.6 seconds per nearby enemy. So these two are really essential, and of course the amulet, that brawling skill could really become all defensive skills, and that would become a godly amulet. But other than that, yeah, these are pretty decent rolls. I mean, their cooldown reduction is missing some, but that movement speed, cooldown reduction, and fury cost reduction, all three being rolled in one amulet, as well as the crit crit strikes with core skills granting you 38% faster attack speed for hammer smashes. Yeah, this is a pretty decent roll, and yeah, try to roll all the three ranks of the all defensive skills though, because that grants you basically with every skill you're basically using three defensive skills, right? Rallying Cry, Challenging Shout, and Iron Skill. They all benefit from all defensive skills, so you basically need that for high level combats. I'll go to my skills now. Starting from the top, pretty regular stuff. I want to proc bleed because I get damage reduction from bleeding enemies, and of course, why not deal extra damage every time I'm hitting, right? If I'm not gonna invest this 1 point into something else. But yeah, bleeding, battle lunging strike to proc bleeding to get the damage reduction from bleeding enemies, and enhanced lunging strike, 1 point into lunging strike, max out hammer, enhanced hammer, and then yeah, you need this for every fury you have. You get extra damage with the hammer, so this is pretty essential. Next, pretty regular stuff. I want to maximize my life, so I put all 3 points into here. Rallying Cry, I only put 1 point because I can manage my fury pretty easily now. Tactical Rallying Cry, Iron Skin, Enhanced Iron Skin, Tactical Iron Skin, like this grants you a lot of survivability in PvP, especially since this grants you Unstoppable too with the imprints. So very important to take these two. And Challenging Shout, of course, you want to max this out. With the perfect roll of my amulet, this could go up to 12, and you need that level 12 Challenging Shout to be able to compete at the highest level. Like I said, this is not completely optimized, but you know, I still do have 4 level of Challenging Shout. You could take the granting you thorns, but I do like this granting me fury a little better, since it does feel like you know, every points of fury does make my hammer deal more damage. So I chose to take this, especially on the field of hatred. There's a lot of regular mobs too, and you can proc this constantly, and you can basically stay at a full fury at all times. So I took that, and war cry, of course, and enhanced war cry. You can take this, granting 45, but since I'm not really low of like granting 45 or something, like generating 45, I took this instead, granting me more damage, and since you can proc this on regular field mobs. And of course, I took all three of, I basically mastered this path. These are really, really important to be able to be tanky as a barbarian, right? All these raid leader, booming voice, and guard Ariel. I recommend you master all these. I took out all these points, and then I went back to here. Yeah, like this healing as well. This basically heals me like 2k health basically every time I hammer twice. So this is important for survivability. I did max out this because this is basically 9% more damage while at max fury for my hammers, and it does really help. I think I do have like almost 204 fury. So in terms of resource management and generation, I'm not really having trouble. I did take out this extra critical strike damage because I don't need any extra critical strike damage after 200%. I did swap that out to Pit Fighter. So yeah, this is what my skill tree looks like. Of course, you need the Unbreakable Bridge, and I did decide to take 3 points here. Now I'll move on to my Paragon board. So now this is where most of my optimizations actually happened. So I started here, same way. I did, since I already have 9200 armor. So if you're optimizing your PvP build, you need to keep in mind that you wanna stop at 9200 armor, and that's what I did. I took out all the armor points that I used to have, and since I did swap out Temerity with my damage reduction pants, I do have a lot more armor now. So yeah, with Temerity I only have 8500, but with my damage reduction pants I have 9200. So that's why I decided to sort of move back, because you can save a lot of Paragon points, and then decide to invest that into health points instead of armor. So yeah, I started here, I went over here. I still decided to go with Wrath because I think it does benefit you. I think this 57.9 critical strike damage with core skills, I think that does benefit you apart from this 200% damage cap, but I'm not sure. But I did decide to go with that. So after Wrath, I did just path over here. Of course, I took out all these armor points because I already have enough armor. And then I did take this raw power here, and I took out all the points out of here for more health nodes, basically. And then I moved over here for Marshall, of course. And then I maxed out this path, then path over here. Took all this core reserve path, max life, max fury. I took all that, and then I came over here. Of course, exploit. This is one of the most important runes as a barbarian, to be able to make your enemies vulnerable for sure every 20 seconds for 3 seconds. And I did take this raw power. So now, after taking out all these nodes, I did take out this points from Hunter Killer, this like 6 points investment, because like first of all, I'm not completely sure if that 32% damage to elites always benefits you. I think it only benefits you when you're fighting blood-marked enemies, because on the loading screen it says champions and players who are blood-marked, right? But on the tooltip it says elites count as all players, so I don't know which is which, and there's really not a clear clarification for it. But even if I consider that 32% damage to elites constantly applying to all players, that 14% movement speed for 4 seconds after killing an elite, that doesn't really benefit you, whereas other regiments does benefit. This guy, what the hell? Okay. So other legendary nodes do benefit you, like this 10 strength, or like this. The 10 strength is actually big, right? It grants you grants you armor and damage. So yeah, that's why I decided to go with that. So Warbringer, this is important. Every time you spend Fury, you get Fortify. And over here, I did take out this Fire Resilience for more max life. Just this 4 points of investment does give me 8% life and a bit of, I mean, fire resistance doesn't really help in PvP, but still I wanted that extra life because you can't really get tankier after stacking 9200 armor other than stacking more damage reductions. I did take take all these, Hunger and Fury for more Fury, that's meaning more damage, and then Path over here, and then I took Might. The reason for taking Might is that it buffs all these nodes, right? All these magic nodes, and since there's a lot of vulnerable damage and reduction from vulnerable damage magic nodes around here, I think this does really help because this one, Might is basically benefiting more vulnerable damage, more damage. I think took all this, and then I path over here with all the saved up points from Hunter Killer. I path up over here. So this grants you, a Brawn grants you more life and more physical damage, so this is really important. Then, of course, more maximum lives and stuff like that, right? And then I path over here, more vulnerable damage, of course, you want to stack that, vulnerable damage. Then I path over here, and then took Tenacity, granting you 8% life and 100 armor. This is huge, right? And then I took all these life nodes as well. I do have almost 21k life after taking all these life nodes, whereas I only used to have 16 to 70k life before I switched up my Paragon boards from Hunter Killer, right? So stacking life is really, really important as a Barbarian in PvP. I can't emphasize enough. And then I path over here, took Territorial, damage reduction from close enemies and more damage to close. Like, this is a must take as a Barbarian, of course. And I took this. Bigger, I mean, I don't have as much as Dex anymore, so I can't really benefit from these two nodes. Like, I don't have 110 willpower and 520 Dex, but still, like, taking these two seemed worth it. I mean, you can choose to customize it, taking more points here where you can still, like, benefit from secondary points, but this is what I took. More damage reduction while healthy. This really helps with their tankiness, and of course, damage reduction from close enemies and all these damage reduction from close enemies too. And the last glyph I took, Undaunted, of course. This is really important. Another damage reduction while you're 45, so very, very important to take this. So yeah, that's my newly optimized Paragon board. Mostly I did take out all these nodes to Hunter Killer and Brute, because I mean 2.5 attack speed, no one cares about that, right? But I mean, that 4% more life or like 2% more life, each node does grant me like noticeable amount of life. If I for example, if I take this 2% life out, that's like 400 life basically, right? Yeah, like, so yeah, you want to, like, I can't emphasize enough how important your life pool is. That's how you get tankier, right? Because there is a cap on armor. After 9200, you don't get any tankier. So you want to take like points out, points in to armor and health nodes until your character is basically optimized at 9200 armor and 200% critical strike damage. I mean, I could take out 70% more critical strike damage and roll into more close and core damage skills, but you know, end game farming does get really dull, and you know, you get what you get from the drops, right? So remember that use both axes for your side weapons for that extra damage to healthy enemies. If you do have enough critical strike damage stacked already, that is. So yeah, that's basically my optimized PvP Barbarian guide. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.